Let's open it. Well, this is going to be a good one, I can tell. Matthew, everyday audiophile, music lover, today reviewer, and beer drinker. I mean, as always, as is tradition, today is the Oak Cliff. I want to get this wrong. Crispy Comet. Let's focus on that. It's kind of cool. This is a cold IPA. It's 7.5%, so it's going to put me down. I mean, it won't put me down, but you get what I'm saying. Oh yeah, it's pretty nice. Let's find a place to put this. Over here. All right. So, it's been a while, but I'm finally here to talk about the Laiv. I've listened to it in my system. I've actually listened to it in 3 different systems in my house. I brought it to 2 different people in my audio group to listen to it in their systems and kind of get their thoughts. So I'm ready to share that. And whether I think it's worth the asking price, or maybe they need to reduce the price a little bit. I guess we'll find out. Instead of doing a traditional unboxing, I was going to do that. Vinshine Audio, who's going to be the main distributor for Laiv that kind of took over Denifrip's spot, I guess. He actually just posted a video, but a day or 2 ago, and it's way better than anything I could have done. So I'm just going to link to his in the description, and you can go and watch that instead. Let's just get to the important bits. So inside, yes, you get a nice little cover plate that we don't really care about. It has instructions on the back. You get your certificate of authenticity, which is metal, by the way. The card there is metal. You get a guide for the spikes. It is kind of clever. I've used it once, and then after that, I just kind of did it the old-fashioned way, the boring way. I don't think I don't think reviewers have really covered this as much. The remote, let me just get it out of here, is really quite nice. So it is aluminum. If it'll focus on it, yeah, there we go. In the top of it, there is a triangle and a square and a switch that goes between them. And the function of this is in your DAC on the display. I'll post a picture here somewhere. There's a triangle or a square, and this corresponds to which device you're talking to. So I think the direction that they're going to go, unless they come out with another remote later, is, oh, you want to talk to the DAC, you switch to the triangle, because that's what it is currently on mine. Oh, you want to talk to the HP2A that's about to come out, that I have pre-ordered, switch to the square. Now you can adjust volume and input and all of those nice things. One thing that this remote has, and I want more functionality out of it. There are 2 custom function buttons. It's these 2 here, function 1 and function 2. And you can change what they do, but the options there are really, really limited. One of them, and I think it's kind of the default for function 1, is you can set it to, there's a nice click. It's nice. You can set it to change from oversampling to non-oversampling. This makes it pretty nice and easy to switch back and forth to see, the sound signature of them, of what you like. And then what are the other options? There's 2 other options, but they weren't really worth mentioning. But the remote is nice. I can't wait to try it with the headphone amp. I'm gonna set that to the side here. Just put it back in the box for now. And toss this box on the floor very gently. The amp itself, the DAC itself, does come in a bag. Look, it says Laiv. Everything says Laiv. And while I'm undoing this, I have heard a lot of complaints about the color scheme. That this gold and black is pretty gaudy, is one way of putting it. I need a drink. It's very Asian, is perhaps the way to putting it. A lot of people that if you're getting the silver version of it, so I have the black. If you're getting the silver version of it, the knobs here are still gold, so maybe if it was just all silver. And then same thing for black. A lot of people were requesting if you got black, the knobs here are black, the little feet here for something to sit on top is black. Just all black. And I understand why they didn't do that. I do wish they did that as well, but to be honest, the black and gold, I think it looks pretty nice. You have the logo here on the top, and on the back you have your inputs and outputs. The one of note that I have not gotten to try yet, that I will very shortly, is I2S. Based on my experience, the USB input is very sensitive to your source, to your transport. And I've tried it on a few things. I've tried it straight from my Rune Core. I've tried it straight from like a Raspberry Pi that's on a linear power supply. I've gone to friends' houses that have much nicer equipment, like the Hi-Fi Rose RS130. It's a much better USB stage. What else? There's 2 other things that I've tried, but all of those using the same USB cable across all of them presented differently on this. Some better, some worse. Hi-Fi Rose was the best out of all of them. But not far behind was the Raspberry Pi with the linear power supply. And also upgrading the USB cable did make a huge difference. And I think I mentioned that in the last video that, we went from like a $4 USB cable to a $70 USB cable. And yes, I have a love-hate relationship with cables. I'm going to set this down. It is quite heavy. I have a love-hate relationship with cables in that my day job as an engineer, and it tells me the cable shouldn't make a difference. Ones are ones and zeros are zeros for a USB cable. But I'm telling you, that did make a difference. Just the bass was a little bit deeper, a lot deeper. It hit harder. When going from the $4 cable to the $70 USB cable, the biggest difference wasn't the bass necessarily. It was that you went from, this is after running in for a few hundred hours now, the voices went from being like pinpoint to having a little bit more air around them. So it changed the presentation again. And probably you could go between different manufacturers that give you, $100 USB cable, or if you're going crazy, $1,000 USB cable, which I'll never buy. Maybe I will. I don't know. And maybe those different cables will give you a different presentation on this DAC. It's really interesting how sensitive it is. The reason I'm looking forward to... that's so good. The reason I'm looking forward to I2S, though, is that reports online and reports from other users have said that this is vastly superior to USB. And I don't think they're wrong. Compared to the other DAC that I have, which I'll post a picture here somewhere, it's this USB implementation I don't think is very good, in that they don't have a lot of space. The receiver here, all of that circuitry is probably good, but when I compare it to like my Audio S5, the Audio has a vastly superior USB implementation in that the cables don't change its sound signature. If they do, I don't know if it's biased or not. But it's not. It wouldn't be to the same degree. I didn't hear the difference from a $4 cable to a $70 cable that I heard with this one, with the Laiv, and certainly not when we went over to a friend's house and he casually bought what Nordost Heimdall 2 USB cable. Difference between the $70 cable or the $4 cable and the Nordost cable, USB cable on the Audio, was not that much, if anything. Because we had to switch cables, so that's another thing. What did I think about this after probably 400 hours now, 500 hours now of burning in? First, I haven't had a single issue with it. There have been some users online that, on AudioGone and HeadFi that have had issues with it, and they've had to have parts replaced. I haven't. I've used it a mix of USB and coax and soon I2S, and I haven't had any issues with it locking onto a signal and just performing great. I will say that the XLR output is just way superior to RCA. Sometimes this isn't the case. Sometimes they both can sound really, really good. Maybe your gear only supports RCA, which is not uncommon. But in the case of this one, XLR was definitely the way to go. But let's start from the bottom and work our way up on the sound signature. After 500 hours, I would describe the sound signature as laid back overall. And again, my main comparison is going to be two DACs, the Topping D10. I have the D30 as well, but D10, the Audio S5, which is in the same price bracket as this. I think fully decked out, it's a couple $100 less than the Laiv, and then the Laiv. Obviously, the D10 can only do RCA out; it doesn't do balanced. And that's just the way that is. And as a disclaimer, I use the D10 on a daily basis. It is the DAC that I use on my desk downstairs for my day job, mainly out of constraints for space. I'm getting some risers for my 2A3 monoblocks, and then these things will go. The Laiv will go underneath it, so it is soon going to replace the D10 because it is superior in my opinion, but I like the D10 for how small it is. I can't lie about that. Okay. Bass. This DAC is laid back. I would describe it on the slightly warm side of neutral. It is neutral, especially compared to my audio. My audio it comes off a little bit warmer just because it seems to have even more bass girth in this Laiv. But the Laiv is neutral for all intents and purposes. It goes deep. It's well extended. There's a good amount of attack. My instrument that I played when I was gonna go to college for it was the double bass or the stand-up bass. And there was not a time when I listened to my reference tracks that feature bass. It could be Gary Carr or stuff that I've recorded myself that I'm just so intimately familiar with. There was no time listening to this that I thought it sounded digital. It sounded entirely. It sounded always like a real performance that was right in front of me, and that's a huge thing. That's how I build my system. I want it to sound like real life, and that's why I use the audio in my reference system. This comes close. It's not quite as realistic as the audio, but it's closer. It's just a little more smooth. It kind of reminds me of the difference between an EL84 and a 2A3. The 2A3s is just a little bit more lush on that low end, kind of like the audio, and the EL84 is a little more sharp and a little bit more neutral, if a 2 can be neutral. And that's what this has here. The mid-range, realistic. I mean, if you're not comparing the bass, when I look at the audio in this, they both sound so incredibly familiar, or some familiar. I mean, I guess that's a good way of putting it. They sound similar. And that's all I can really say about it, is that A-being, closing my eyes, switching between them, they sound about as similar as I could ask for, which is great because instruments sound good, separation sounds good, the air between instruments sounds great, and that left to right soundstage is just beautiful. This does a great job of that presentation. And compared to the D10 in that sense, the D10 also does great, but where it falls short in comparison to the live and the audio is kind of that sense of scale on things. If I put the D10 in my reference system here, I'm going to get separation on the instruments. I'm going to be able to tell that this one's over here and the bass is over there and that the singer's in the center. But I don't get that air around the instruments. If I'm listening to my favorite Doug Burr piece or song, he, with the audio and the live, I can feel how big the space is that he's recording in. I can tell that it's an abandoned church. With the D10, I don't quite get that. So in that sense, for this very, pretty good resolving system, it's not like mine is super state of the art, but pretty resolving system, the live and the audio come out on top for that. I'm able to just really get a sense of what I'm listening to. The upper mids, so let's say female vocals, after about 250 hours, last time in my last video, I kind of complained about this. It's not sibilance, but just when you're talking to someone and they kind of do that, it was accentuated on the live. The live kind of made it sound digitally enhanced, and that went away after about 250 hours. So it just settled down a little bit, and it was wonderful to listen to. No issues there anymore. The highs, if I'm comparing it to the audio still, the audio sounds more lifelike, like I'm in a bigger room, right? So if I have a singer that's right in front of me, there's a little bit more space around them. I can feel the decay of the notes a little bit better. Just that they just ring a little bit wider like this. It's kind of hard to describe unless you hear it. And live still didn't quite have that. It had that air, but the way that it decayed was just a little bit faster. That's the easiest way that I can describe it. It sounded like an R2R DAC, which is what they marketed as, and it did that well. The difference in that airy presentation, that soundstage left to right and forward to back, I think that really comes down to the personal preference. For me, in my reference system, I still prefer the audio until I get that I2S network transport. We'll see. I'm going to do a comparison between the two, purely down to that one sounds more realistic to me. But listening to this DAC on my friend's system, he was running Macintosh gear like the C53 with their KT88 mono blocks that I can't remember the name of, running into FR25s from PS Audio. The audio, for some reason, and I don't know if this is how it was supposed to be recorded, but one of the songs we listened to, it sounded like the artist was behind the wall. Like they were so far back in the soundstage that when I closed my eyes and then opened them, it was like, oh, he's a couple feet behind the wall, behind the speakers. And it was kind of amazing that the speakers were able to reveal that presentation in the DAC. And when we switched it over to the live, he jumped forward again. I don't know which one I preferred. The space that the audio had was vastly superior. It sounded like he was playing in a much bigger space. But the live, he was much closer to me, and it felt a little bit more intimate on his system. And my friend, he heard the same thing. His name was James. So again, it just comes down to personal preference. One last thing about here. I will open this up. I'm going to make sure I hide the serial number. It does come with a little sticker here. And this is to prevent you from, opening it up. And, if you open this up, it's going to void your warranty. So I am going to do that. I'm going to void my warranty. I'm going to open this up and see what the inside is like and give you my personal opinion on it. Maybe next week, maybe the week after. I'll give you all an update. But so far, loving it. Can't wait to have it in my desk system. As soon as that HP 2A comes in, I'm super excited to run my HD 800s off of it. Super excited to just clean up my desk and have that there. Final bit of business in this review is the price. And I'm sorry, this video is going way long. It's 21 minutes now. Well, cut down, it's going to be less than 21 minutes. Do I think it's worth the $2,700 asking? Last time I said yes. I still wish it was a couple $100 less, like $2,500. And I still think, I want to make sure I didn't bump that. I still think that's the case, to be honest. I think this DAC is great at $2,700. I think it does a great job at competing against other DACs in that price range. But I think for the dollar, me personally, I'm going to pick the audio. It's a little bit cheaper, and it does what I want in a system better. I know that not everyone has heard it, but you need to. You need to go buy it right now. If this was $2,500, it'd be an easy buy. If you can find one on the used market, I would say go for it. I don't know what the warranty is going to be like. It doesn't say anything online about it being only to the original owner, so I assume that the warranty can be transferred as long as you have a receipt of the original purchase date. But it's still a wonderful DAC. $2,700, I'm not going to complain too much. $2,500 is a great deal. If you can get it for less than that, then I think it's an absolute banger of a product. Yeah. Well, I think that about covers it. I'm sorry for going so far over my normal 15-minute video, but what can you do? But I'll catch you all next time. We'll see what we're talking about next. See ya.